Hey everybody, it's Yanni back. Today we are discussing one of my favorite films in the 31 Days of Horror. Today we're doing Hellraiser. Alright, let's get into it. Morocco! Frank Cotton, who is a hedonist, buys a puzzle box that's said to open the door to otherworldly pleasure. At home in his bare attic, Frank solves the puzzle and hooked chains emerge, tearing him apart. A black-robed figure resets the puzzle and the room is set to normal. Later, Frank's brother Larry moves into the same house. He intends to rebuild his relationship with his second wife, Julia. Larry is unaware that Julia had an affair with Frank before her marriage. When Larry accidentally cuts his hand moving furniture, blood drips on the attic floor and resurrects Frank into a ghoulish form. Julia later finds Frank still obsessed with him. She agrees to help to restore his body so they can run away together. Julia picks up men in bars and brings them back to the attic where she mortally wounds them. Frank finishes the job, which regenerates his body. Frank explains to Julia that having exhausted all the sensory experiences, he sought out the puzzle box, which was supposed to provide him access to a realm of new pleasure. When the puzzle was solved, the Cenobites came and subjected him to extreme masochism. Christy, Larry's teenage daughter and Frank's niece, sees Julia bringing a man to the house and follows her to the attic, where she finds Frank. She evades Frank and escapes with the puzzle box, collapsing shortly thereafter. Awaking in the hospital, Christy solves the box out of curiosity and unknowingly summons Cenobites and a monster called the Engineer, from which she narrowly escapes. The Cenobites' leader, which will now be referred to as Pinhead, although he is, yes, the Hell Priest, explains that although they have been perceived both as angels and demons, they are simply explorers from another dimension seeking carnal experiences, and they can no longer differentiate between pain and pleasure. When they attempt to force Christy to return to their realm with them, she informs Pinhead that Frank has escaped. The Cenobites agree to spare Christy and recapture Frank instead, with the condition that Frank must confess to escaping them. Christy returns home, where Frank has killed Larry and has taken on his body by wearing his skin. Julia shows her what is purported to be Frank's flayed corpse in the attic. Julia then leaves the attic, locking the door behind her. The Cenobites appear and, not fooled by the deception, demand the man who did this. Christy tries to escape but is held by Julia and Frank. Frank reveals his true identity to Christy, and when his sexual advances become rejected, he decides to kill her to complete his rejuvenation. He accidentally stabs Julia instead and drains her without remorse. Frank chases Christy to the attic, and when he's about to kill her, the Cenobites appear after hearing him confess to killing her father. Now certain he is the one they're looking for, they ensnare him with chains and hooks, tearing him to pieces. When the Cenobites double-cross Christy in an attempt to take her, she grabs a puzzle box from Julia's dead hands and banishes them by reversing the motions needed to open the puzzle box. Christy's boyfriend Steve arrives and they both escape the collapsing and burning house. Afterwards, Christy throws the puzzle box into a burning fire. A vagrant who has been stalking Christy walks into the fire and retrieves the box before transforming into a winged skeletal creature and flying away. The box ends up back at the same merchant that Frank bought it from. Again, it's one of the most iconic movies of all time, isn't it? Of course, Doug Bradley as the lead Cenobite, you will. Nicholas Vance, the chattering Cenobite. I mean, come on. It's one of the greatest movies of all time. Let's just be honest. It's one of the best movies Clive Barker has ever made. Of course, he fought and made a ton of cuts after the MPAA was going to give him an X rating. But it is what it is. They've redone the movie about 3 or 4 times now, but I mean, the original is still the best. So that's Hellraiser for this day. Back tomorrow with another one.